Hey everyone, welcome to Cyber-Conversations. Today we are going to continue our talk on Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. If you haven't already done so, please hit like and subscribe. And with that, I hope you enjoy our show. Thanks a lot. Now, Gungan City, I have no complaints about. You're right. It was a beautiful, interesting, strange new area that was unlike anything we had seen. I think the Gungan City
Yeah,
is
and the
far more
underwater
interesting.
thing with the shields holding back the water.
Yeah.
I love it, dude. I
Not a
got a
big
thing for
fan.
underwater cities,
Not a
so
big
that
fan of
was
Boss
really cool for
Nass,
me.
but again, because too much CGI and doing weird things just to make him funny to kids, but it didn't really move the story forward. But he
I
wasn't in it
love the
much.
fact that
He
I
wasn't in
love
it
the
much.
fact that the Gungans are very diverse. Like you can look at humans, and some are short, and some are tall, and some are fat,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
some are
I have no
and
problem
some
with
are
his appearance.
darker, some are lighter, some are some are bipedal, some are unipedal.
Yeah, I'm not talking
Um,
about Boss Nass's appearance. I'm talking about some of the things he does, like that
Yeah,
that
so you perceived another childishly
that
comic
thing where
relief
he
moment that.
blubbers, whatever he does when he
Okay,
shows
yeah,
approval.
yeah.
It's
He
to
does
make
it
kids
twice.
laugh. Yeah, and he does it to make kids laugh.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, and it does, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I guess it just,
I don't know.
you know,
I
I
don't. I
wasn't.
don't understand what's wrong with that. But we've established that Josh is not liking that comic relief stuff. So we can at least explain a lot
But
of
I,
that. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just. It's part of your palette, and I think we need to establish it because we can now understand a little bit easier
but I don't
moving
want.
forward
But
how
I
any
do want.
comic relief is going to rub you the wrong way.
Well, no, because it's not all comic relief. Because C-3PO has always been comic relief, and he doesn't bother me. But I think it's because he's not over the top the way Jar Jar is. I think George Lucas in this movie suffers from excess. He doesn't know when to stop. He makes Jar Jar an idiot, but then he keeps going. He's like, okay, he's not idiotic enough. We got to do more. Let's make him stand in crap. Let's make his tongue fly out and embarrass himself. We got to do this. We got to add the thing with Sebulba and him dropping that thing into and Sebulba punching him or getting ready to punch him because we need to make him as idiotic as possible. It doesn't make any sense to the story, but let's do it anyway. And that's the sense I got from Jar Jar. That George Lucas didn't know when to stop and say, okay, that's idiotic enough. Let's keep it like that.
Yeah. Well, I can see why you are feeling that way. I can see the same thing you're seeing. I don't have as visceral a reaction to it. That's all.
Yeah.
It's I'm not a kid. I'm not a kid anymore, but I'm positive that I would have loved that when I was a kid. And
Yeah, I
I'm
probably would
thinking
have too.
maybe when I say kid, we're talking about like 5 to
Hmm.
13. And that I don't know. Maybe that's too young of a kid, to make Star Wars something that is like a lifelong
Right. But
obsession.
I'm only saying
But
that
but it
because,
but it is a lifelong obsession. It works anyway.
yeah.
So
But I'm only saying that to say, I do like some comic relief because I do like C-3PO, and he is, if nothing else, a comic relief. I liked Salacious Crumb in Return of the Jedi, and he was purely comic relief. But I don't like Jar Jar.
love Salacious Crumb.
Yeah.
Well, okay, fine. So we get through the Gungan City, and Boss Nass slobbers all over himself, and then Qui-Gon actually dominates the room
Hmm.
with will altering telepathy in order to keep Jar Jar with him, which I think was partially due to the idea that listen here, this you're making me think about this, but I think this is a good point. um, Jar Jar is doing fine. He meets the Jedi. The Jedi actually talk him into. I mean, Obi-Wan literally takes advantage of his stupidity, and they talk him into going to Gungan City, even though he already told them that if he goes to Gungan City, he's going to get in trouble.
Hmm.
Then they get him into Gungan City. Now they're standing in front of the judge, and he is about to be punished in a way that Qui-Gon doesn't even
You
really
mean
fully know.
you mean
He doesn't
punished?
know Yeah, he's going to be punished, and he is a Gungan. So the Jedi are not familiar with Gungans, presumably, and
Mhm.
they have no idea what punishment means in that culture. But Qui-Gon feels personally responsible because he was warned that Jar Jar was going to get in trouble, and he drug him in there anyway. And
Mhm.
now he's his responsibility. I've never even thought about that before, but you made me think about it. It makes perfect sense. So he takes them with them under the guise that he's going to be a guide, but he doesn't really need a guide. He's just trying to save the guy because he got him into trouble.
That's possible. I do
It's
like.
a plausible explanation.
There was a great line in there though that I do love that Qui-Gon says to Obi-Wan. I believe this is the part where he says it, where he's saying he senses that Obi-Wan sees these creatures as less than them. You probably know the line better than I do. Um,
Qui-Gon says that to
Qui-Gon
Obi-Wan?
says it to Obi-Wan as like, don't judge these people. They're not less than. I can't remember the line now. I could look it
Oh,
up,
I
but
don't remember that line either, dude. You got me.
yeah, I think he said something like that, where Obi-Wan was saying something disparaging, and Qui-Gon's like, settle down.
Are
Um,
you sure that wasn't like a behind the scenes thing you saw,
no, I don't
or
think
like
so.
a?
I gotta look at it
Oh,
again, but I can't remember the line, and I'm not gonna
I
look
was
on
about to
Wiki,
say extended edition,
and
but
I'm
there
not gonna
is
look at
no extended.
WikiQuote because the last time I did that, we lost our signal and got all garbled.
Yeah,
So I'm not
right,
gonna look it up.
right.
But
Well,
I
good
think
thing
there
we
was a
learned.
line. I'll find it for you and I'll send it to you.
Yeah,
Um,
well, don't obsess over it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So they go through the planet core in the Bongo. They see a couple of big, mean-looking fish, and one after the other eat. The bigger fish keeps eating the smaller fish.
Love
Um,
it. Love that whole scene.
and then we get to Theed.
I
Um,
have one complaint. I have one complaint. I'll plant down there in that scene. That is an amazing, extremely Star Wars scene. It's wild. It's crazy. It's spacey. I mean, the deeper they go, I really didn't like the fact that they called it the planet's core.
yeah,
I think Qui Gon was smart enough to know that it wasn't the core, but the Gungans are a little bit, light on the thrusters, so they call it the planet's core because they think it's the middle of the planet. But they call it that, and I think as an audience, as a sophisticated audience, we would probably figure out that they weren't actually talking about the core. And the fact that it was going through a tunnel system probably suggests that they were actually going around the planet, but they went through a tunnel system that went under a piece of a continent because it was the only way to get through. Maybe the other way was like going all the way around the backside of the planet or something like that. But
yeah,
I can
possibly.
imagine a geological reason why going through a cave system would get you from one place to another like that. But
I
in the
don't know if
midst of
they.
that cave system, the deeper they go, the more amazing and cyclopean and kaiju like the creatures get, and they're all very Star Wars. The
Mhm,
only complaint that I would have is that every single chamber that they go through is like brightly lit.
mhm,
And
yeah,
of course it has to be for us to see, but it's like I don't know where all this it would have been really cool to see some like bioluminescent fungus on the walls or some
yeah,
reason that every
something.
single
Yeah,
one was lit nicely like an aquarium.
yeah.
But anyway, that's
Um,
minor.
yeah, the Bongo had lights on it, but that still shouldn't have provided enough light for us to see so
No,
well.
but if it didn't and they were just going through a murky blackness like they should have
Yeah,
been, then it would have looked like shit. So
yeah,
I'm just suggesting that he would have included some kind. It wouldn't. He it's Star Wars, man. What if
absolutely.
it was a giant? What if it was a giant mushroom growing out of the wall that had like a spotlight on the end because it was because the bioluminescence was so bright it was like lighting up the whole chamber. I mean, you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
make up any kind of reason.
yeah. I agree, but
Yeah.
and yeah, it did always bother me that they called it the core, and it is interesting. I don't know if they've ever explained if that's the truth, that it's not really the core, it's just what the Gungans think it is.
Yeah, of
But
course.
who knows?
Well, then we should talk about that. I mean, we just did talk about that. I've just
Yeah, I
introduced that
don't know
idea
if they ever
because
said it for sure, though. I don't know if they
I've
stated
always
it, and
thought that.
yeah,
I really puzzled over the core thing for like the year after the movie came out, but it really made sense to me. I think the second or third time I watched it that the Gungans are dumb, and even though they have this amazing technology, somehow they got this shield technology. Everything else about them is dumb. Everything else about them is sheep herder. But they got this shield technology that is so badass that it makes them super valuable, and it makes their underwater cities possible. So whoever invented that shield technology is the Einstein of the Gungans, or
mhm.
it's possible they parted it from some other alien race, and that's the only reason why they're a quote unquote high tech. nation.
Right.
But they don't know what the core is. They just know this thing goes deep and deep until somebody dies. And so as far as they're concerned, it's like bottomless. But somehow they knew that it made it all the way through to Theed. Are you seeing my point about the
Yeah, yeah.
crystal cavern system? Like
Yeah,
it would make
absolutely.
sense.
I just
It's
don't
like you
know. I don't know
take
if
a
they
sphere and
ever.
then draw a line through one edge of the sphere, taking out a little chunk, like you're slicing off an apple.
Yeah,
That's where the path of the caves would have gone
I
through.
know exactly what you mean. I just don't know if they ever confirmed it or if,
Eh.
according to the literature, it really is a planet with a core made out of water, which doesn't
Well,
make much sense. But
let's just say that even if Lucas didn't even think about that, and there has never been an official explanation for that, that is as plausible as any other explanation, and
yeah,
it makes perfect sense. And that's what I've thought all along.
okay.
So then we get to
So
Theed.
Theed. And Theed I didn't find as impressive, but that's because I didn't find it very otherworldly. I found it
What?
beautiful. I found it
Oh
beautiful.
my God.
No,
Theed is one of the most beautiful
I,
locations
I
in
didn't say it
all of
wasn't
Star
beautiful. I
Wars.
said it was
Why? What?
beautiful.
What more do you need?
I said that it
What
wasn't
more do you want?
I said it wasn't otherworldly because it wasn't otherworldly. It was Italy. It was shot in
It
Italy and
was
it was
it
Italy.
was
So
it was
it's
so
beautiful.
otherworldly.
I didn't
I've
think,
imagined that city so many times before I saw Theed. Have you ever read Dinotopia, James Gurney's series of books, where he's like an engineer and an artist, and he sketches out this whole world building about this world where dinosaurs and people work together. But there's a location in that book, in the original book, called Dinosaur City, and it looks a lot like Theed. I have to think that Lucas drew inspiration from it because it came out in the, I'm gonna say, early mid '90s. So it was right there, and there is a, if you look at Dinosaur City, you can Google it right now. If you look at Dinosaur City in Dinotopia, it's very much a big slice of feed. But I always thought it was an awesome idea. James Gurney came up with it first, but building a city at the edge of a cliff where a river pours through the city and then off the waterfall, it's just such a beautiful way to deal with waste and to have a constant influx of cleanliness and water supplying to the city. It's so dangerous looking and powerful, and then you put a beautiful location on top of that. It is very otherworldly. There's no place on earth that beautiful,
but then
even
explain,
Italy.
but then they just explained how there's a blockade and these people are dying because they don't have space supplies. What kind of space supplies do they possibly need if they have this lush green forest? They have this huge waterfall that's bringing them fresh water all the time. They have that gigantic power room, whatever it was, where they're eventually going to fight with Maul. What space supplies do they really need that the population is going to die if they don't get it when this planet seems to be offering everything they could possibly need? So all of a sudden, here's the
What?
city.
I don't even understand what you're talking
There's
about.
a blockade to prevent them from getting their supplies. And they even say, our people are dying. Like, we need these space supplies. This blockade is going to ruin us. And where's the danger? What danger? Why do they need these supplies? They have a self-sufficient city on a self-sufficient planet that provides them all the food and water that they need. So how are these people going to die because of this blockade?
Well, I've never even thought about that once, so I gotta admit, you got a point. Like, what is it? What are the space supplies? I
Yeah,
don't
we
know.
never find out, and I have no idea. But they did say these people
I
were
don't
in
know
real
why I would
danger
take huge offense to that, but that's
because it
definitely a
didn't
good point. I've never
because
even
it didn't make
considered.
sense. That's the only reason. It's not an offense. Like, I'm not angry about it, but it's something that didn't sit well with me. And when I thought about it, I was like, why do these people need space supplies? What are these supplies that they need? And why are they dying without them on this planet that seems even more vibrant than Earth? Like,
By
they've
the
got
way,
everything. Hmm?
listener note before too much time goes by, it's not called Dinosaur City, it's called Waterfall City. So if you
Oh,
if you if you Google Waterfall City or Waterfall City Dinotopia, it'll come up like a rash. You'll see what I mean.
okay. Yeah, because I've never, I think I'm not, I don't even think I've heard of it.
I have every James Gurney book that's ever been written. But anyway, if you look, you'll see why I'm talking about Theed.
Yeah, yeah, and I can understand it. It's just that to me, Theed didn't seem otherworldly because it was primarily shot in Italy, and it looks like Italy with a giant
There's
waterfall.
so much compositing going on, though. It's like Italy on steroids, dude.
Well,
I'm,
yeah, I mean,
I,
the
again,
digital
we're gonna
effects in the movie.
disagree all the way through this. I have no idea what you're talking about as far as Theed being ugly,
I didn't
boring,
say ugly.
otherworldly.
I did not say ugly. I said it was
Like,
beautiful.
it's a gorgeous setting.
Yes, I said it was beautiful a couple of times, but it's
Okay.
beautiful
So
because it's
then
Italy, and Italy is
So the
beautiful.
space supplies is a good point, and I can see that one. And we're going to move on to the they're gonna carry him at this point. At that point, they're talking about space supplies. Now there really is a crisis.
Yeah, now
Now
there's an
now there
invasion.
there's
They
an invasion.
and I think we can breeze past the next couple of sections because there's not a whole lot to say. There's more fighting with the droids that is like not a whole lot of conflict because we've already established the droids are not a threat to the Jedi, but it doesn't last long. And then they meet up with Amidala and they rescue her and they get on the ships and they get to the blockade, which was another thing that
Love
bothered me. It was an interesting
love the
scene.
fact that right off the bat, Padme is a decoy, and we don't know it yet. But when we find out later, that's just a cool seed.
Mhm. Yeah, that was fine. And they were, lucky enough to have Keira Knightley, who's like enough of a look-alike that it was hard to tell which one was which. Keira Knightley
Yeah,
looks
but
enough
so
like
anyway,
Natalie Portman. But then the blockade,
well, in the face she does,
well, yeah, yeah, yeah. But then,
at least at the time.
yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
seen either of them that much recently.
So then they blast off in that really cool silver ship, but we never seen
Mhm.
nothing like that. Certainly doesn't look like a thing that would have windows or like have room inside for people to walk around. But it's pretty big. It's way bigger than it looks on the outside,
Yeah,
and extremely sleek and almost angelic, almost like gray alien technology.
yeah, I like the design of the ship, and I like
And every one of the Naboo ships are kind of like that. They're all very streamlined and sleek.
yeah, but I didn't like the yellow in the Starfighters, but I did like this the chrome silver on the Nubian.
You're gonna complain about the
No,
yellow
I'm
in
not
Starfighters
complaining.
later? Okay.
I'm not complaining. I'm simply saying I didn't think that I didn't like the yellow so much. It's not a major complaint. I don't care. He could have painted it purple with polka dots
Okay.
on it and I wouldn't care, but I didn't think it was as pretty as the silver chrome looking Nubian, which was
By the way,
striking.
listener note, I actually am sick, so if you're noticing a crack or a squeak in my voice, or if I actually break into a cough,
Yeah,
it was some we had to get this track laid down, so if
yeah. And not for nothing,
hopefully I don't hack up a lung.
I did offer to record it at a later time, but we do need to get it out
Oh yeah,
on time, and
jo-
the other recording days are just not good for Vern because he is the
Josh
busiest
isn't a
person in the world.
taskmaster.
Yeah,
Yeah, I am pretty busy.
so
I do a lot of things.
yeah.
Anyway,
So
yes.
that
So they
blockade scene
blast off.
is
R2 is introduced. Come
yep.
on.
I love R2's introduction. It does lead to a
Yes.
scene that I have mixed feelings on, another one, but I do love
The
R2 getting
congratulations
introduced that
scene.
way. I love everything about R2's introduction. The fact that he is there and he pulls them out of the fire. I like seeing. I mean, I didn't enjoy seeing the other droids getting blasted off the ship, but I appreciated the fact that R2 survived and managed to fix the ship and get them through the blockade. At the same time, the problem I have with it is that there's one ship against this supposedly unbreakable blockade, and they still manage to get through, which like I guess I can forgive it because it's Neomoidians and they're completely morons, but the whole point of the blockade is to prevent ships from going through. If there was an entire fleet going through, I could understand a couple of
Mm,
ships getting through, but one ship, they couldn't destroy one ship.
I don't know about that. First of all, the Queen ship is, heavily shielded, heavily armored, and very, very hard to hit when it's coming straight at you. Second of all, it's a blockade, obviously, to prevent the passage of merchant ships, carrier ships,
Yeah,
cargo ships, capital ships.
yeah.
This is a much faster, sleeker target, and so whatever. It would have been a really short movie if they would have killed everybody on
Yeah,
board.
yeah,
So I'm
I
glad they
agree.
didn't.
Like I said, it's mixed feelings because I enjoyed the scene. It's exciting, and I love the introduction of R2. It's just another one of those things that bothers me because it's one ship. They shouldn't have had that much trouble with it. But again, it's Neomoidians, and they're pointless. They're useless, not pointless.
Yeah, they really are.
So then they get to
I hate those
Tatooine,
guys.
and I do love the fact that we went back to Tatooine. Um, And without getting too much into the sequels, because there will be time enough for that later, I don't understand why they couldn't make them on Tatooine. They had to make another desert planet. Um, what's wrong with Tatooine? We've got a desert planet. It's established as a desert planet. But okay, enough about the sequels. I love Tatooine. I love seeing it in the movies. I don't. I would not want to be there because I don't like sand.
Well, I wouldn't want to be there either. I hate
Yeah.
the desert. I was forced to live in California for Southern California for 20 years.
Yeah, I lived in Palm Springs before I met you.
I
I
am
lived in the actual desert in Palm Springs.
I am all deserted out, baby.
Yeah.
But so Tatooine is okay because I don't have to live there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's where the
exactly.
story goes.
That's a number of people have said, because I used to live up north and it snows up there. And I've said many times, I think snow is very beautiful when it's on a computer screen, but it's 70 degrees outside. But I don't want to live anywhere where it snows again because it's cold and it's
70's
unpleasant.
approaching the top of where I'm comfortable, so I'm good anywhere from like 20 degrees all the way to about 80 degrees.
Yeah, no, I'm ready to put on a parka if it goes below 60.
Oh, wow. Well, I know a lot of people like you. We'll put it that
Yeah.
way.
Anyway, so we get back to Tatooine, I mean, I was very happy to see it. Uh, the only disappointment is that we get Moss.
Again, very Star Wars.
Yes.
Again, I mean, I'm gonna say this hundreds of times probably. There's so many Star Warsy moments in the Phantom Menace. It makes it unmistakably Star Wars.
Yeah,
It
I
it
do.
enhances the Star Wars
I
universe.
enjoyed seeing Tatooine, though I kind of, at the time, I wished that it was taking place in Mos Eisley rather than Mos Espa because I like Mos Eisley. But
We've
I
already
understand,
seen Mos Eisley.
well, we've already seen Tatooine.
Yeah, we
But I
haven't seen Mos
understand,
Espa.
but I understand what they're doing, and it's fine. Like I said, it's not a major complaint. It's just something
Whatever.
that there was like a twinge at the time because I was like, oh, I want to see
So
the
they
cantina again, and we're not going to see it because it's
they
in Mos Espa. But it's fine.
they park in the Dune Sea,
Hmm.
and then they walk their way to the city, and they don't have any idea what the danger is that they've just done. Presumably everybody was okay in the Nubian ship during the sandstorm, but
Yeah,
maybe for all we know, Anakin was lying just because he wanted to get him over to their house,
yeah,
to his house.
possibly. In any case, yeah. So we get the kid, and again, as I said before, I'm just going to take a second to say it. The same as with Ahmed Best playing Jar Jar, I will never condone the behavior fans had toward Jake Lloyd. He did fine for what was he, 9? For a 9-year-old kid,
He's
he
very
did fine.
precocious.
He wasn't a
Vicious.
Shakespearean actor, but he's 9 years old. I'm okay.
It's
I can live
vicious to
with it.
treat that guy with anything other than respect. Think about it, man.
Yeah.
He was Anakin freaking Skywalker in the Phantom Menace for the rest of his life. That guy is a hero. For the rest of his life, he has something in his past that's like living the dream for any, 10-year-old kid, any
Yeah.
10-year-old boy at least.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the fact that he would ever be treated with anything other than respect, the fact that he would ever have anything happen to him except a slap on the back and be handed another beer, it doesn't make any sense. It's beyond my
But
comprehension.
people are still pulling
That
that.
level of evil,
Yeah.
is something I thankfully don't even understand.
And that's something that we're still seeing to this day. Look at the woman Moses Ingram who played Reva in Obi-Wan Kenobi, and look at
Well, we're skipping to another character in another show for another reason.
yeah, yeah,
That is not a 10-year-old boy that was brought
but they
into
were
the chance
blaming
of a
the
lifetime
actress.
for a
But
Star Wars
but
movie.
they were blaming the actress. It was the writing.
It's a
If you
totally
didn't
different
like her,
subject.
don't blame the
Okay.
actors for these things. The actors are
Good
just doing
good
what they
point.
can. So anyway, yeah. So we get Anakin, uh, and we got Watto. I don't know why they gave Watto an Italian accent, but well, it was fine.
Everybody in the Star Wars universe has an Earth accent. That's just
Yeah,
what
yeah,
we
yeah.
understand. There's only so many ways you could twist the English language. It bothers me too, but you know what? I'm just gonna say this. I hope I don't turn any Star Wars fans off my opinion, but like Star Wars to me is boom boom. It's pew pew. Star Wars is fantasy. It's fantasy. It's got to be fun. It's nothing but a swing set. Like compared to Star Trek is plausible. There's a totally different brand of sci-fi. So for that reason, it's really hard for me to let Star Wars get away with stupidity and lack of continuity and people who are in charge of it that don't know what Star Wars is or love it or know how to plug it into everything that came before it. But with Star Wars, continuity is important, obviously, but like having a logical explanation for everything is not.
Well, yeah,
The
because there are some.
accents that everyone has bother me, but never enough to turn me off.
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't turned off by it, but it did bug me. But I did find it interesting that Watto is immune apparently to Jedi mind tricks.
Yeah, that is
And he wasn't
interesting.
a
Yep.
particularly bright character, so it wasn't that he was strong-willed or anything. Just, I would have to assume it's his species, his race that is immune to mind tricks
Yeah,
because.
Watto also introduces us to a boringly essential aspect of the Star Wars galaxy. He talks about Republic credits, and
Mhm,
it's like there's obviously a center to this Republic thing, whatever it is, and we know we've read about it, and we've seen it in video games, and we've seen it in the scroll, but we've heard references to it, but like we don't know what it is. But they have a money system, and that money system doesn't affect the entire galaxy. And now, for whatever reason, we've heard that Tatooine is on the outer rim. And if you have any idea what astrophysics is about, or if you're a good Star Wars fan, you know what that means
mhm.
as far as galactically speaking. But somehow, after Watto says this, boom, you're realizing that there's a much bigger picture and there's a money source out there because all we've heard about is credits.
Yeah, and
In fact, when Obi-Wan and Luke and Han were talking in the bar, they didn't even say what it was. They were just like, "We'll give you 5,000 now and 12,000 when we get there, or whatever." But they
yeah,
didn't say credits or anything like that.
yep, yep. And it didn't look like Luke was paying for it when he ordered that drink. We didn't see anything like money change
Right.
hands.
Yeah, he just kind of tapped the bar twice.
Yeah.
So yeah, well,
Yeah,
I
can
don't
I
know what's
have one
going
of
on in
those?
Tatooine,
Can I have one
but
of those?
But
That's
anyway, I want to credit Watto for that piece of information because it really does blow out the Star Wars galaxy and prepare us for the framework of all the story that's coming after it.
yeah. But then he says something that kind of seemed asinine to me. He said, "You're not going to find another Nubian part in any other shop. I can tell you that." And the Jedi take his word for it. Like, oh, okay, so these credits are not going to be enough, and we can't go to another store to find this part because Watto said that he's the only one who has it. Like,
That's a good way
okay,
to keep anybody from going to the competition.
yeah, and it worked. Who
Well,
knows? They could have
he's a
gone to the next
he's a
store.
scumbag.
Yeah, but he could have. So
He's a
Qui-Gon,
scumbag slave owner, man.
yeah, but Qui-Gon, in all his wisdom, decided not to question it. Oh, Watto said that no one else
Yeah,
is going to have a
well,
part. I guess I better take his
listen,
word for it.
listen. The guy is tired, okay? He's actually breathed a little bit of dioxazine today. he's been dragging this burdensome student around with him everywhere he goes. He's had to jump off of a he's been on in like a multi-hour trip on a submarine. He hasn't been able to sleep. He hasn't changed his underwear. He's a little grouchy.
Come on, though, dude. Like, you're right, but at the same time, like, you gotta admit, like, where's the sense in this? Watto said
Okay,
that
all right.
there's
Okay.
no other place that you're
I
gonna find this part, and Qui-Gon's like, okay, I guess you're right.
Well, maybe they were he I'm
I mean, it's
assuming
possible.
If Watto was immune to the Jedi mind tricks, then I'm assuming that Qui-Gon wasn't going to like use the Force to read his mind or anything like that. But
Hmm.
maybe he intuited that this guy was telling him the truth because it just so happened for whatever reason that Watto got his hands on something rare from Naboo, and he knows for a fact that nobody else actually has it. So
Possibly, but these are.
maybe that's coincidence.
Yeah, but these are what I like to call mental gymnastics. If you have to try and figure out why
Yeah,
something is
yeah.
happening, how
No, I
hard
give
would
you
it
that.
have
I
been
give you that.
for a 5-second thing where they could have had him say, "Well, I've been to
Well,
every other store in town and no one else has the part." Watto was telling the truth.
let's not park too long on the
No,
negative
no,
side
no,
of
I
it.
know. I'm just,
I'll grant you that. I'll grant you that, and we'll move on.
yeah. So moving on, Anakin gives them shelter. We get to meet Shmi, um, and this was like mind
Pallies.
blowing, huh?
We're introduced to Pallies. Pallies.
Pallies.
Pallies. You know what Pallies are, right? Yeah? No?
Uh,
They're little like oranges. He goes up to that
oh yeah,
lady
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah,
trading,
yeah,
and
yeah,
he's like, "Hey, here, have some Pallies. You like these?" I don't know
yeah.
what Pallies are, but we were introduced to Pallies there.
Okay.
Hey, I pay attention.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but so we get to see Shmi, and I don't know how mind blowing it was for everyone. I thought it was pretty interesting that Anakin doesn't have a father. Um, He just was. I'm not sure what George Lucas was trying to
Oh,
say there.
dude, you're okay. So you're broaching the area of the movie where we discover the word Midichlorian.
Before
And
that,
so we're also being, yeah, we're being introduced to the idea from the mother that
there
Anakin
was no father.
has
He's
an
just,
immaculate birth.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that certainly has a powerful ring here on Earth.
yeah.
That
But I'm
that
wondering what
that
George
story
Lucas is
has a
trying to
very
say.
guttural reaction from most humans,
Yeah,
to
but
the
I'm,
negative or the positive.
yeah, but I'm wondering what George Lucas intended it to be. Because what is he saying? I
Why
mean,
would it not be what he intended it to be? I think
well,
he intended exactly what we are discussing.
what, whether he's a Christ figure?
Exactly. Of course he is.
But what does Anakin turn into?
Well, I don't know if you want to go down this road.
I'm just like
This is a
I'm
worldly story being told by a worldly person.
yeah, I'm
There's
just
of
asking.
course
I'm not
a
going to say,
propensity toward some anti-religious concepts while taking religion out of context, not understanding it the way the proponents of that religion understand it. That's
but
a
I'm
road you
not
don't want to
sure.
go down
Well, I'm
right now.
just not sure what, like, if there was, like, let me try to put it in the right way because I'm trying to
Yeah,
figure out, like, I don't know what message George Lucas is trying to convey here. Is he saying that Anakin is a Christ-like figure who's going to turn to the dark side and become one of the most vicious killers of all time because he's a Christ-like figure? Or is he saying a completely different message? Like, I don't know what message you got from that. I still am not sure how I feel about it. So, what is your take on that? I mean, I would consider you an expert in
oof.
this kind of stuff because he does very clearly make Anakin a Christ-like figure by saying he's got an immaculate conception. There was no father. He just appeared, um, and he's the one. He's the savior. Except
Yeah.
he turns to
So
the dark side.
psychologically, Lucas has done a lot of homework.
Hmm.
Psychologically, he understands that this is going to have a guttural reaction. Psychologically, he understands that this is going to trigger 100% of people out there. There's nobody that doesn't understand, the basic tenet of the Christian story, and so it's going to create a universal reaction that is like, oh, this guy was prophesied. This guy was for a purpose. You know what I mean? This guy's special at the very least. And I think Lucas himself greatly underestimates the power of the Christ story and its impact, and many people do, but it's like it's still a guttural reaction, and I think that you can go no further than that in a sense by saying that he just wanted something that really reminded us that Anakin was special, that he was born for a purpose, for a reason, without even really thinking about like the comparison between turning him into the ultimate techno demon, and instead of somebody who lays down his life for the sins of the world. The other part of it is maybe a little bit more. I'm sure there's some listeners out there that'll understand what I'm talking about. It's a little bit more long term, and that is that when worldly people in the world, when fleshly people in the flesh, when unbelievers disrespectful of the thing that believers believe, tell stories about the thing that the believers believe. There's usually a propensity to turn them upside down. You use them for what they are useful for, but then the purpose is to turn them upside down, which the religious refer to by the word blasphemy, quote unquote.
Hmm.
And so we see that a lot in movies, and I think that's as far as I'm going to go with it because this is not a philosophical or religious discussion.
Yeah, and I was
But
about to say,
it's interesting that we've come to this point though, because this is like one of the things that really makes Star Wars is that it gets into deep philosophy. It draws from Buddhism, it draws from Christianity, it draws from so many things that are really important to humanity. And Lucas did his homework before he made this crazy fantasy about space wizards.
mhm.
And here we are, talking about this very sensitive, sort of edgy subject as a direct result of trying to understand an aspect of Star Wars.
Yeah. And in case any listeners don't like the topic that we're talking about, we're not going to talk about it long because that's not really what the show is about. But I felt like this is important for this part of the story because there is an
And in
impact.
case Yeah, of course. And in case any listeners out there are rolling their eyes because Josh has to make a disclaimer about that, don't worry about it. That's how the world works. You know that.
Yeah, I don't want to
So
lose listeners
so
because we're talking about a Christ-like
Christ-like
figure. Yeah, midichlorians
So
was another divisive part.
Midichlorians are a very divisive part of the Star Wars lore. I actually have mixed feelings about them. I
Hmm.
think that it's sort of I think that a lot of people think that we've made it scientific. Lucas made it scientific and took the profoundness out of it. I think there's nothing lacking in the profoundness of the idea of microscopic organisms living inside of us that are connected to the Force.
Yeah,
Um,
I never had a
but
major
it
problem
does
with it.
sort of create a mechanism, though.
Hmm.
There is now it's less mysterious. It doesn't feel like it's our spirit reaching out. It doesn't feel like it's our, telepathy reaching out. Now it's like we got parasites, and the
Yeah.
parasites get all the credit, and we're just sort of like, so like, can you withdraw midichlorians from one life form and inject them into the other and give
Well,
them
they
stronger,
did this.
force?
They did explore that.
Right. Yeah, we already know what that answer is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have mixed feelings about it. On one hand, I think I accept it because it is what it is. It's Star Wars. On the other hand, I feel like it did sort of get mechanized a little bit, and I don't know if that takes away from the spiritual aspect of it. On the other hand, it sort of made this new mystery, this complexity about the Force that's like, oh, now when you walk into a Jedi lore library and it's full of books, now you understand why, because it's not just stretch out with your feelings, Luke. It's much more complicated than that. There's a history, there's a philosophy, there's a lifestyle, there's a mentality, there's meditation, and then there's all these little details like, oh my God, millions of microscopic parasites that live inside of every Jedi that give them a touch of,
Of the
telepathy,
Force. Yeah, yeah,
telekinesis.
yeah.
The Force,
The
exactly.
irony, the
It's
irony,
interesting.
the irony is not lost on me that in a movie that I find no end to complain about, I had no problems with midichlorians.
That is shocking, actually. Okay, fine, moving
But
on.
I guess because I know there's bacteria and parasite, well, not parasites, but bacteria and things in all of us, like even in the real
Hmm.
world. So the fact
Hmm.
that there's millions of these little tiny creatures inside people in Star Wars is not a stretch to me, and the fact that they
It
give them the
really,
knowledge of the Force is that's fine. I was like, yeah,
yeah,
okay, I get it.
it really does feel like he set it up, at least in the beginning, and I wish it would have stayed this way, is you are born with a metachlorian count, and there's nothing, unmutable, it's immutable. You can't be injected with metachlorians, at least not in any sort of moral framework, but up until that point here in the Phantom Menace, the idea is you are born with the amount of metachlorians you have, and then it's static because they know Yoda's count, and at that point he's like 900 years old.
Hmm.
So they know his count. It's not like how's your count this week? Your
Yeah,
blood
yeah,
sugar
yeah,
doesn't go up and down. It's like you're stuck with it. And then they're out there like finding kids that are born force sensitive, and they go and they pick them up and take them away from their parents. I mean, it's clear that the metachlorian count is there from the very beginning, and it seems like it's immutable throughout their lives.
yeah.
So interesting lore. All interesting stuff to me.
Yeah. And I did, I mean, you said before that the Jedi are the ones who have midichlorians, and I don't know if you meant it that way or not, but I always got the impression that
You know what I
midichlorians,
meant.
huh? What?
You know what I meant. It's not just Jedi.
I
It's
always,
not
yeah, I
just Jedi.
always assumed that midichlorians are in everyone, but the Jedi are the ones who are sensitive to them, or maybe they have a higher count.
Yeah. I
Like,
would even go so far as to say that there are many people with like mid counts of metachlorians that don't get the attention from the Jedi Order, but they absolutely are special in
yeah,
some way. Like maybe there's some people out there with some weak telekinesis, or people that are just really good
yeah, yeah,
empaths, or people that can really intuit like what's going on, or people with lightning reflexes that are like partially force sensitive.
yeah,
I think that's plausible.
yeah.
We've
And
never
that,
seen it explored, have we?
and that's something that I would like to see explored.
We never see
But
it explored, do we?
yeah,
I don't think we
no,
have.
no, we haven't.
That's
So
crazy. That's crazy. That
yeah,
would be fun.
I
That's
mean,
kind
there's
of the impression I got, off subject when Force Awakens came out. Was it Force Awakens at the very end? Was it the very end of Force
um.
Awakens when they show the kid with
Oh no,
with
that
the
was
with
the
the
Last
broomstick?
Jedi. The Last Jedi. Yeah, you
Last
see a
Jedi. Okay.
kid and he
Yeah.
pulls a broom to him
That was what I
with the
thought was
Force.
going on.
Yeah, that's I assumed
Yeah,
that the
well,
kid had the Force and just, he was not trained, but he was somehow able to pull the broom to him. And I was perfectly okay with that
yeah.
because, I
Oh, and
love
so was I. Actually,
yeah.
that was exciting to me. So I thought the story was going, and it was actually kind of in this vein that I'm talking about right now, is where like this idea that it doesn't all have to be about Jedi and Sith. The Force is powerful and it's created by all living things. So what does the world look like when there's like a bunch of X-Men,
Yeah.
and they're not Jedi, but they're like partially force sensitive, and they have these different emergent abilities that come out that kind of give us like sort of pseudo superheroes in the Star Wars universe.
Well,
Anyway, never
Dave
happened.
Dave
Never
Filoni,
happened. Disney's got way better ideas than me.
well,
Way better.
Dave
I mean,
Dave Filoni is, I'm sure, listening to this, and he should take note.
yeah, I'm sure he will. I'm
Yeah.
sure he will. It'll be my idea, and I won't get paid a penny.
Yeah.
What
I
was the
want to
last
see.
movie? Dude, the sequels, I'm sorry, I can't wait to get there. The sequels are so unimportant to me, I don't even remember the name of the last movie. Well,
Oh,
The
the
Last
Rise of
Skywalker.
Skywalker. The Rise of
Rise
Skywalker.
of Skywalker. There you
Oh,
go.
there's going to be a lot of
That
fun when we
that
discuss those because I
didn't
love
at
those movies.
all go in the direction that I thought it was going to
Oh,
go.
me neither. It didn't go in the direction, but I
At
loved it
all.
for
It
that.
didn't
That's
go
part of
in the
why I
direction
liked it.
anybody was expecting it.
The Last Jedi was the one that really changed
Wow. Yeah, we
direction, and I
better we
loved it for
better
that.
save that for some other time.
Yeah, yeah, we'll talk
Yeah, we
about it when
better
we
save
get
that
to it,
for
but
some other time.
I love the sequels because of that. I
Those
just
movies are
lost a whole
ridiculous.
bunch of listeners because I said that I love the sequels.
No, you did. I got it back because they heard me say they're ridiculous because I meant it.
I don't think that they're ridiculous. I think that they're better than the prequels in many ways. Not
I still
always.
watch them.
I
We're getting off
Not
subject. I still
always.
watch them. I will definitely defend some things about those movies when
Yeah.
we get there. When
And
we
I
get
and I
there.
do have some complaints about them too. I love them, but they are not perfect. But we've said it many
Where are we
times.
at? Where are
We've
we
said
at?
it many times. We're Star Wars. This is not Shakespeare, so we're okay with this.
Right. Sure. This
So
is
now
we're
we've
s- we're
got,
so we're hanging out at Anakin's place. We're introduced to C-3PO.
yep.
Super cool. Super cool. What do you, that's a little coincidental.
Yeah,
That takes a little mental
a little
gymnastics. You're
bit.
telling me that
Yeah,
C-3PO, the one that was on like Leia's counselor
that
ship,
was
like
in
that
front of
was
Vader
made by
multiple
Anakin.
times, and never
Yeah,
it never seemed like he recognized him. Now, not for
Anakin built
nothing.
that from scratch.
Not
Like
for
that's
nothing, we've already established there are a lot of other droids that look just like C-3PO, so it is possible that you really can't tell them
yeah,
apart. But I
yeah.
still believe like it
You
would be
know,
hard to convince me that a kid who was Anakin's age and built the droid from scratch didn't recognize him once. And of course, we know the reason why is because George Lucas hadn't written it yet when he did the first three Star Wars movies. But yeah, Anakin created C-3PO. He is the maker that
so it does make
C-3PO kept
sense that
referring to.
it does make sense that 3PO was being built as a protocol droid because he's bipedal. He has four fingers and a thumb and two
Hmm.
thumbs. I'm sorry, eight fingers and two thumbs. But anyway, he's kind of like a one of those servant robots in iRobot. He is the kind of droid that would have been able to give his slave mother a little bit easier time. So of all
Yeah,
droids, it seems like there's a little bit of logic there. Also, 3PO, I refuse to believe he built that thing from scratch. I mean, I didn't even really see a welder around or anything. So
yeah.
I think he's a junker. He's a junker. So he probably like pieced together those parts from other 3PO droids that simply came in as an arm or a torso
Yeah,
or something like that. That makes more sense to me.
yeah,
But it's also an interesting thought that in at the end of the Revenge of the Sith, he says Bail Organa says that
yeah. Let's wipe
C-3PO is going
his
to get
mind.
his memory wiped, right? Well, it's possible. It just occurred to me. I don't know why it's never occurred to me before, but it's possible that the 3PO that we see in Episode 4 is a different 3PO unit. It is not impossible that is another 3PO unit that was made to replace the original and called C-3PO. Anyway, just a
Possibly,
thought.
but it's also possible that it is the same droid and he
It
has no
is.
idea. So,
Yep.
yeah. So
Yep.
anyway,
Not
uh,
pushing the point at all. It was an interesting thought.
yeah. Anyway, so then we get to the pod race. Well, we get to the really weird, long, drawn out. Let's bet on everything and his mother scene.
Oh, the whole pod race thing?
The
That's
whole thing
really
with the
important to George Lucas.
yeah, like so if you win, you get the droid, and if I win, I get
Either
Anakin
way,
and I
win.
get the
Yep, it's
ship, and either way,
genius.
yeah, it's like
Genius.
shenanigans.
It's not shenanigans. It's genius. It's good
I
bartering.
I
He
couldn't.
gave he gave a guy addicted to betting offer he can't say no to. And
Yeah,
he risked everything because he sensed that much power and potential out of Anakin. He wasn't interested at that point in delivering Padme as much as he was getting Anakin off that planet, and he was
I
willing to throw everything, risk his entire mission on it.
I don't know, and I think that's part of the problem I had with Qui-Gon. was that he has questionable morals. He's supposed to be a Jedi, and I didn't really follow. It didn't track with me that as this heroic Jedi, he would have questionable morals, like trying to cheat Watto out of credits before, and
Oh, I don't know. I don't know
and
where'd you got the questionable morals. He wasn't cheating about.
he tried to use the Jedi mind trick to
Oh,
get Watto to take
okay,
these
yeah,
useless credits
I
that
see.
Watto would have been stuck with. Um,
Yep.
but he failed because Watto
Watto
was
would have
immune.
got value out of him. He knew
He's
that. He
and
knew
then
it.
and
Watto wanted the trade of his area because it was convenient. If he would have been paid in Republic credits, he would have been able to convert them.
but the
He knew
same
how.
thing
There were
with
people coming in and out of there all the time.
it's still like Watto said that his credits were no good there. If Watto would have seen value in them, he would have taken them. He said that the credits are no good there, and Qui-Gon tried to get him to take it anyway. And here he's trying to get Watto to, bet Anakin's freedom, and Watto throws the chance cube so that if it comes out blue, it's Anakin, and if it comes out red, it's Shmi, or maybe I have the colors
Yeah,
reversed.
he cheated
And he
multiple
cheated.
times to make sure that his
Yeah.
mission didn't fail.
Yeah, but there's that morally questionable behavior
Yeah,
from a Jedi.
well, I grant you that, but like, I
And
mean,
maybe
Luke
this
has no
is more
sister.
important.
It's
You know,
these
yeah.
are not perfect people. These are not perfect people. In fact, the ones that we like are the ones that are the rule breakers. The
Yeah.
ones that we like are the ones that are just a little outside the box. You know what I mean?
I don't know. My favorite character in all of Star Wars is Obi-Wan because he's so upstanding. I don't I
Yeah,
love the guy
I
because of him.
don't actually disagree with that in any way. Obi-Wan is definitely uh, among my favorite characters. If I had to pick a favorite character, Obi-Wan might actually win.
Yeah, Obi-Wan is my favorite by a fair margin,
Yeah,
and my second favorite is
that's
Ahsoka.
interesting.
My
Yeah,
second
that's
favorite
interesting.
is
So
Ahsoka.
that's why we're friends,
Yep.
despite all of the opposite opinions that we have. Like ultimately, you love Superman. You
Yeah.
know, you don't care if he's a Boy Scout. You like the fact that he's a good guy, that he has a good moral compass.
Yeah.
That's
I
absolutely where
understand.
I live.
I completely understand when people say they prefer Batman because he's more interesting and he's edgy and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I get it, but I'm still a fan of Superman because he may be a goody two shoes, but I love the fact that he could do anything in the world and he chooses to do good with it. And that's why my favorite Marvel character is Captain America. It's not Iron Man because Iron Man is too egotistical and too narcissistic for my taste. I
Well,
like
Iron
an,
Man Iron Man is not everybody's favorite character. It's
no,
not like
but
universal.
but Captain America is like very few people's favorite character, but he is mine for the same reason Superman is my favorite character, for the same reason that Obi-Wan is my favorite Star Wars
Yep.
character.
Well, that's one thing we definitely have in common.
Yep.
And that is actually I've already said it. That's the exact reason why Return of the Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie, because in that movie, good ultimately, utterly wins,
Yeah, well,
permanently
that part of
wins,
it I
and that is
appreciated.
probably one of the biggest reasons why Force Awakens gets off on a really wrong step for me. It's like watching Aliens 3. It's like, oh, thanks. In the first 5 minutes, you've destroyed everything I loved about this franchise. You know,
Mm,
it was supposed to be a permanent win. I wanted to see Luke in charge of a new temple. I wanted to see Han and Leia happily married with force-sensitive children. I wanted to see the
we'll get to
return of the
that.
Republic. I want to see the Republic in a different form.
We'll get to that, but yeah, like I am appreciative of what they did do because I didn't, well, we've discussed it already. I didn't think that
Yeah,
Luke
yeah,
deserved that. But we'll get to it.
yeah. You have no
So
choice.
yeah, yeah. So next, we get the pod race, and this is I know I sound like a broken record, but this is another scene in the movie that I have mixed feelings about because a pod race by definition is a race which is interesting because we know who's going to win, but we still want to see it happen. But somehow I feel like George Lucas took it on just a little bit too long, and by the time it was over, I was like, how long is this freaking race going to go? Because I
Oh,
was
he loved fast cars. Him and all of his buddies loved fast cars. It was like for him it was like spacey American graffiti, you know.
yeah,
So I get it. I get it. Races are full of tension and I honestly I don't watch races. I have no idea why people would want to watch cars go round and around and around and
yeah.
around and around. It doesn't make sense to me.
And my
But
father was a race car driver.
race car guys do. So we need to keep in mind that all Star Wars movies are not 100% made for us. They're
Yeah,
not
yeah.
made by us, and they're not made for us. So yes, there are childish characters that I'm not going to be, my favorite, and there are long races that are for the people that loves races. And if I'm going to see races, I'd much rather see like rocket chariot races on another planet with a bunch of weirdos at the helm. Like that's much more interesting than me.
Mhm.
I love the pod race scene, but it does go a long time. I just not long enough to bother me. And I understand why. Like I tipped that off to Lucas because he really wanted to do that. That was his thing.
Yeah, but I did feel like
And
it
it
went on
does
too
move us
long.
along.
Yeah, yeah, it does.
It
But I
does move
did
us along.
feel,
I mean, it absolutely establishes a part of the plot that gets us along, gets us on to Coruscant.
yeah, but I did feel like it went on a little too long. And I also was
Okay.
unsatisfied with how Sebulba was, like how he was defeated, because I like it when, we've discussed this, I like it when the bad guy realizes he's lost and has to suffer the consequences, and we don't get enough of it with Sebulba. He was such a jerk that I was really looking forward to seeing him get his comeuppance, and all we got was a shot of him saying poodoo.
Yeah, well, at least we learned a little bit of Huttese there. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's a way you can have a foul mouth without actually having a foul mouth.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he'd been doing that for a while, and he wasn't even the first one to do that. But so then we went. Yeah,
So there's not much I could say about the pod race. I think we could skip right through that
yeah,
and get
yeah.
to Coruscant.
Hi everyone, it's Josh. Just wanted to let you know this is where I'm cutting it off for the week. Um, Next week we are going to continue our discussion on Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and I hope that you'll tune in. In the meantime, if you like this episode, please hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Feel free to leave us comments, and I really hope that you've enjoyed the show. As always, make tomorrow better than yesterday.